to learn things. Oh, they go to our education system. So you're telling us our education system is completely fair and equal, that everyone has equal opportunity for our education system? Oh, it's not? Our education system is based off of your housing, of the price of the house you were born into? Well, that doesn't seem very fair. Not your daddy was just saying that everyone is able to make money equally. But from what I see, the only way we make money is through the jobs that we get. We get our jobs from the education system that we attend. And if the education system was completely equal opportunity, then yeah, I completely understand. But our education system is based off the price of the house you are born into. And none of us choose the price of the house we are born into. And that's what's so funny, is that people do not understand that you are a product of your society as well too. That you did not choose the language that you speak. You did not choose to be born where you were born into. In fact, if you were born as a baby and no effort. Okay, Jonathan Pryor. So let's do this. So you're a little baby and you're born and you get put in a closet till you're 18. Are you just able to increase your education through effort? Oh, I don't think so, right? Because we're all born dependent on other people. Once again, Jonathan Pryor. So say somebody is 20 years old. They did not get anything from their family. They turned 18 and because they were born in a poor zip code, they then have no opportunities in their area. Because they were born in a poor zip code, they didn't get a good education. And then once they turned 18, they had no money to go learn. So they had to take a minimum wage job because their parents kicked them out. And now that person is 1 week, 2 weeks away from financial ruin. So they're working 40, 50 hours a week all the time. People like Jonathan Pryor will never acknowledge the difference between somebody who is born with educational opportunities and some of the people that weren't. And the only reason why is because of their ego. Because they like being able to look down on other people and say, yeah, we had the same opportunity. I'm just better than you. Because their mommies told them they were special when they were little. And it's really sad because it is literally only white men that get their ego hurt so bad by some random dude on the internet talking about his experiences and how that leads me to these conclusions. I am a business owner with over 30 employees. The moment I got successful, I was like, oh shit, how can I make sure that I can do this for the next 50, 60, 70 years? And I did not come up with the idea to exploit as much as I could from my employees. The idea was, well, why don't we make it so that if the employee does well for the company, that they get paid as well too? But Jonathan, what you're not understanding is that other people, Miss Raw, again, I was telling you my experience. Every day when people come in here, I would say it's almost 100% white men in their photos that, get really upset when I say that everyone is a product of their society, because we are all interdependent. Every job depends on another job, right? There's no jobs that are done in a vacuum. Every person depends on other people, right? We're all interdependent. That's what's so funny, is that person that was pushing back, they were born as a helpless baby, right? They were born as a helpless baby. If they didn't have parents, if they didn't have someone taking care of them, they would not make it. From the very beginning, we're dependent. But then we also have different experiences with those parents, right? Some parents keep books in the house. Some parents care about education. And so because we are naturally going to have such a different variance in our educational opportunities in the home, then we should have more of equal opportunity in our school system. But what people see, but it's hard to understand, is that sometimes, all the time, your net work is determines your net worth. That's what it really is. Not at all, not your daddy. How did you get that? And that's where you can see. So another, pretty sure, not your daddy. I mean, I don't know. When I just see an ATV in their profile picture, I do assume white male. And what it is it's the fragility. That's what it really is. That's what points them out. It's the fragility, right? All we're doing is describing how literally the majority of Americans feel. Richard, you are right, but this goes down to everything we were talking about. Every single person that is my age, from the age of 8 years old or longer, was told to do what? Told to go to college. We were literally given a roadmap. If you follow the rules, if you work hard, and if you get an education, you will be able to afford to live. And Jonathan, if more people were, or sorry, not Jonathan, if Richard, more people were telling us trade schools back then it would be understandable, right? But what we're saying is that everyone is born as a helpless dependent. Many people, their education determines their outcome. So they were like, oh, go to college, get a degree. But that didn't work out for so many people. But the people who signed those loans were barely 16, 17, 18 years old. Yep, there you go, Yankee John. Not yet, which is pink. I think we are doing that. I am not much of the website person. And that's where, Jonathan, I do feel bad for you, because it does feel like you understand that you're not trying to come in here, and it feels like you're acting in good faith. But I do have to tell you, a lot of what you are saying is very wrong. Because it's not just about learning financial education, because I guess what you are saying is that the majority of people are just not budgeting well enough. And that's where people really have to start seeing that when there's not enough, it doesn't matter how well you budget, right? If your cost of living is $4,000 a month, but if you only make $3,000 a month, doesn't matter how much you budget. And if the same people that you work for are also the same top shareholders in the majority of the businesses or the products that you purchase, then it's not easy for them, then it's not hard for them to keep your salary low and raise the prices. And that's all that's happening. So this is where, Jonathan, yeet. I mean, they get to mute. We'll leave them, mute them for 5 minutes. But this is where people like Jonathan Pryor are not people that we care about. We gave them a few minutes, and then look, the majority of people don't understand how money works. I told you it's just a bunch of men whose ego is so big that they literally think they're smarter than everyone, and not that they didn't get opportunities that other people got. It literally, yep, trash incarnate, we're on the same side right there. So what I try to do, literally, is give them as much leeway as possible. I want to see if they are actually talking in good faith. Because if they're talking in good faith, shit, we can talk forever, right? I want to talk to somebody who's like, but I just don't get it. But I just don't get it. Okay, cool. We can have a conversation about that. But if somebody says the majority of people don't know how, because I was just about to do the bread analogy. Maybe I should have let him stay for the bread analogy, but it doesn't matter. Somebody like that's mind is not going to be changed, especially not by statistics. So, oh, we got another one, guys. We got another one, guys. We got Tom in here. So let's talk to Tom about the bread analogy. Maybe he'll get it. Or we'll see if Tom comes in good faith. That is so fine too. So what we believe is that imagine America as 10 people that need to make bread together to survive. We made a shitload of bread. It's $160 trillion in our economy. More than enough to go around. But for purpose of simplicity, let's take that $160 trillion in the American economy and bake it all down to 10 slices of bread. 10 slices of bread. Some people, maybe they're separating the wheat from the chaff. Maybe some people are tending to the chickens and making sure they're getting the eggs. Some people are processing the raw sugar cane to get the sugar. Some people are getting the yeast, whatever it is. One person, though, the rich person, they bring the oven and the ingredients, right? They bring the oven and the ingredients, but they don't know how to make the dough. They don't know how to get the oven working. They don't know how to fix the oven if it breaks. So how much should everybody get? 10 slices of bread, 10 people. Everybody did the work to make the bread. Well, in America today, 1% of people have as much as 90% of us. So that's one person taking 5 slices. One person taking 5 slices. What ends up happening is that a few of those people, the other 9 people, have to fight over the remaining 5 slices, right? So we got one person taking 5 slices, which leaves 9 people with 5 slices left. Right? So a few of those people who actually did the hard work will not get enough to survive. Some of the people that separated the wheat from the chaff, they'll be told that their job wasn't valuable enough and they're just doing labor and they're not skilled enough and they don't get enough to eat. And that's where people like Tom are like happy with that. People who do the hard work still don't get enough to eat. Dang. And Tom, what you're not understanding is that when somebody is underpaid, it means we're all underpaid. And what was you probably grew up poor because your parents were working their asses off. All of the money that your parents were making was going right to the company. And the company was so greedy that they made sure to never. And then because you were born in a zip code that was not as nice, your education was not as good and you didn't get as many opportunities. And yeah, maybe you worked hard and got ahead, but it's not about just you working hard and getting ahead. It's about, society is literally about the majority of people having access to security. Yeah, Mikkelson, I know. Just like Not Your Daddy isn't a business owner, because every day we get people who are emotionally stunted, immature, and the way that you can tell that is they're not able to actually have a reasoned argument using facts and information. All they do is lean on their own lived experiences. And that has got to be the most rudimentary way of looking at the world ever. Because out of the 7 billion people on this planet, you are saying, no, one person's view of the planet is correct, and that is my view. And I think that's what's so cool about this. What do you mean boost it up, Chad? Because that's literally what we try to do every day. That's why I try to come on at 11. So that's really the problem. That's why people are so against it, and that's why you see them go silent. Because it really is funny. That's a lot of what we're talking about. Why do people get so angry? Why does Tom get so upset? You know what I mean? That I'm just some guy on the internet talking about my experiences. There we go, Taryn. So many of us feel this way. And what it is that, Tom, you don't deserve it. This isn't about having conversations with people whose head are stuck in the sand. That's all. I don't care. I know, but I don't have any interest in changing people's minds. That's all. Keep your head in the sand. I don't care. I could have done that, chose not to, because I wanted everybody to have the same opportunities that I had. Yes, I worked my ass off, but the only way you're able to start a business is if you have enough prosperity that you can take that risk without also risking homelessness, right? Because if somebody barely has a couple $1,000s in their bank account, say somebody has worked and struggled for a decade to get $5,000 in savings, that is not very much. And you want them with that $5,000 in savings just the moment they have a little bit of security to say, nope, let me go try to start a business. Somehow, even though I'm already working 40 hours a week and I'm barely scraping by, I'm supposed to then go start a business. And I'm supposed to have enough money that I can start this business and possibly get fired from my job and spend all of my savings and then still just be okay. What people don't understand is that they keep us on the edge of a cliff, right? They keep us on the edge of a cliff. And it's only the fear of going over that cliff is what keeps us around. Because what your job really is your job is a lot like a prison. Yeah, you're technically free to leave. There ain't no guards. There's no doors. There's no locked doors. You can leave anytime you want. But the moment you leave, there's no opportunity outside, right? There's no opportunity outside. Well, Mikkelsen, what it is to me is that our economy and our country is incredibly inefficient. There are thousands of people that are as smart as Einstein would have been that died in factories because they never got the educational opportunities. And what we believe is that all humans deserve the right to live. Human rights. Human rights would mean that anybody is given, it's their God-given right that if you need something to live, you can have it. Because we are not in an area, in a time in history where there is so much, there's $160 trillion in the American economy. And if somebody needs help, there is enough to give it to them. But what we are not showing is that, yes, times have changed. Because right now, we are working harder than ever and still falling farther behind. Y'all, don't worry about Tom. He's not in here to try to actually have a conversation with people. He wants to be proven right. Remember, Tom thinks he's smarter than everybody else, right? It's just a brand, John. Tom thinks he's smarter than everybody else. And yes, Taryn, you're so right. And the only way Tom can keep his fragile ego is if everybody else is wrong and he is right. I know, Tom, but you also aren't as intelligent as you think, because an intelligent person would ask two questions. If somebody's working 40 hours a week for a company that makes $1 billion a year, but that person who's working 40 hours a week still can't afford housing or healthcare, what ends up happening? That person doesn't just not need housing. That person just doesn't end up not needing healthcare. Well, guess what? They go on housing assistance. They go on medical assistance. Essentially, those things are there in case of emergency. That person's not really in an emergency. What they are is it's a manufactured emergency created by the billionaires. Tom, you're done. You are just so hard-headed. If somebody is a week away, they call it living paycheck to paycheck. It's a literal term in our society. Living paycheck to paycheck means you are 1 week or 2 weeks away from financial ruin. Well, what Tom thinks you should do is go ahead and just go learn another skill. With what extra money? I don't know. With what extra time? I'm not sure where you're getting it. But what you should do is on that life raft that you're barely clinging to, let go of that life raft and go not get another job, go get a skill that might lead you to having another job. It's just so disingenuous. Yes, Dad's back. So what we are doing is we are, number one, rejecting all of the people like Tom because there is no reason at all. Golden, thank you so much for saying that. Because Golden, that's what blows my mind. I even heard a creator today, oh, you're making 6 figures now, man? And I'm like, that don't mean shit if you're in any major city, right? So Richard, what I don't get is starter jobs still make the owner money. What? That does not make any sense. So if I was to hire somebody for $10 an hour, then I'm presumably still making money off of that. But what it really comes down to is that, Richard, you've believed a little bit of a lie. Because if somebody is offering a job in a community, hey, here's a job for $10 an hour, but that $10 an hour does not cover the cost of living. Richard, this is what I don't get. So starter jobs, like what happens when those kids are in school? Is McDonald's just not open, or is it not for kids? Is it for 18 and 19-year-olds? Well, if it's for 18 and 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds, then a job still needs to pay enough to, okay, so then these businesses would close when those high school students are not at their job? Who works those jobs when the high schoolers are at school? What it really comes down to, though, Richard, is you still are of the belief that, well, Taryn, every week we meet as well, too. I'll get to it. Richard, you're still of the belief that if somebody is underpaid, that only affects that person. And for a long time, I was right there with you, Richard. If somebody's underpaid, it only affects that person. They should have negotiated better. They should have gotten some better skills. But what if we think just a little bit farther? Well, that person still has the cost of living. Their cost of living doesn't go away. And if that job doesn't cover the cost of living, well, the owner is making money off of that job. The employee can't live. How does the employee live? They rely on common good. So essentially, all these businesses that are not paying people enough for food, housing, and healthcare, what they're saying is, I'm going to purposefully underpay my employee so that then I'm going to let the American taxpayer cover the cost. That's what chaps my ass, Richard, because I'm an employer myself. This is how I'm able to see it. Many of the people, so that's where, Richard, talking about high school students, I could give a shit. I am talking about any person that works 40 hours a week should be able to afford housing, food, and healthcare. Because as Nate just said, if any job, whether it's a starter job or not, does not pay the employee housing, food, and healthcare, then Richard, you end up paying more salary, more taxes. My apology. Let me tell you, for me personally, I used to pay my employees market rate. Market rate is the biggest bullshit in the world because you could be bringing in $50, $60, $70 an hour for the company. But because market rate for your job is only $12 an hour, that's all you're going to make. So for the majority of the positions in my business, market rate is $15 an hour. So I would hire people at $15 an hour. Then I did the math on what in the F $15 an hour could actually cover, and it covers nothing. And it covers nothing. Right? So I was sitting there going, dang, I'm making all of this money off of my employees doing their hard work. And they're only getting paid $15 an hour, when in reality for the company, they're bringing in, X much, X amount down. So, Hatch, you can not like me, just don't spam. It's weird. So then the idea is, all right, well, then I would like to give my employees enough to live. So then enough to live would be $35, $40, $45 an hour, right? So enough for them to actually cover their costs is $35, $40 an hour. But what we pay them at market rate is only $15 an hour. So what's literally happening is that the employers are making $10, $15, $20 an hour off of their employees. They're bringing in, $50 an hour. They're paying their employee $15. They're making $35 an hour. But those people then have to go on public assistance to make ends meet. So that is why it feels so confusing, basically, because then the employer owns the media. Why do you think Musk bought Twitter? Why do you think Bezos bought the Washington Post? Why do you think Ellison family is trying to, they bought Paramount and now TikTok? Why do you think that Musk owns all that, right? That's what this is. So what it was is that, Marcy, I already had enough. So what I wanted to do was pay the employees who made the business money. So it was essentially, we gave everyone, here's your baseline, and then you get to make more when the company makes more. So we made sure to have everybody in. We took a little bit of a profit cut at the beginning, but not much, because then what you're telling people is you're empowering your employees. That's what it is. Because you're showing people, I can't do this without you, and you are badass. And every single person that is in an executive level position started off at one of those entry levels, because when you work and you're doing good, you want to have the people come up. So that's what it's really all about. So what we are talking about here is that the majority of jobs, you're technically free to leave. Well, Richard, here's what it comes down to. It's not about respecting me. If I kept my employees at $15 an hour, you all would be paying more taxes. I'm not greedy. That's all it comes down to. What's up, Kush? Where I was like, okay, well, I could keep paying these people $15 an hour. They're never going to be happy because they are barely scraping by. My business is never going to thrive because I am heaping pressure on people who can barely afford their cost of living. And ultimately, those people are going to be looking for a new job immediately as soon as they can. So I'm actually going to have to do more work in the long run, finding new people, hiring people. So it makes sense just to take care of the people that make money for your business. Because if you just try to pay them less and less and less, yeah, you might make a little bit extra money, but you're screwing over everyone else in your community. That's what's so messed up. You're screwing over everyone else in your community. I don't like to talk about specifics. Absolutely, Marie. It just, so this isn't about small businesses at all, though, Marcy. We're talking about $100 billion companies here. This is about the 1%, because where this really goes to, Marcy, is my story about the bread, right? Imagine America as Golden, I am so sorry. That is so sad. Imagine America as 10 people that need to make bread together to survive. The one person has the oven and the ingredients, but they don't know how to make the dough. They don't know the process of baking the bread, and they can't fix the oven. So that one person relies on the other 9 people. Well, in America today, the 1% have as much as 90% of us. That means that one person took 5 slices of bread and left the other 9 people to fight over the remaining 5 slices. So it's really, we feel so divided because that one person took more than their fair share. Everything feels so broken because that one person took more than their fair share. When scarcity makes survival feel like competition, it all feels broken. So that's really what it is that the 1% took more than their fair share. We didn't get lazy all of a sudden. We didn't forget how to budget. 1% took too much, and then they blamed the rest of it. Fair share is enough to live: food, housing, and healthcare. It's so crazy. Richard, the only reason they don't do that is because they have lobbyist groups that then have the politicians rewrite the rules. And they rewrote the rules so much that Citizens United became a thing, and corporations could completely control campaign finance. So if somebody's paying you, that's who you work for, right? Well, it's the corporations that are paying the politicians to finance their campaign. So that's who they work for. And what we need to do is build a community of people that are ready to change their language change their habits long term. What Fred is referring to is the income taxes. And that's where it is such a stupid lie, because the majority of income taxes are paid from people with under $30 million, $40 million. It's just really successful business owners. But we're talking about the billionaires and the 100 millionaires. So yes, the 1% do pay more in income tax. But if you look at the richest people in America, they don't make any income. They live on the buy, borrow, die strategy, where they have their company, they borrow against its stock, they either get it forgiven or the stock keeps going up, and then they pass away, right? So, and that's where y'all... Oh, there we go. We got a Michael Vallely, and he's actually standing up for Bill Gates. Michael, I have to say that you are really wrong on this one, because I actually researched a couple people for this next point, and Bill Gates was one of them. So, Michael, whether you are rich, it is all a luck of the draw. Whether you are poor, it's all a luck of the draw. Why? Because we're all products of our society. Michael here thinks that Bill Gates is an amazing person that did other things the rest of us weren't able to do. Well, Michael, let me tell you the truth. What actually happened was that if Bill Gates had been born just 2 years earlier or 2 years later, he would have missed his window to start the operating system. If Bill Gates had not been born right at a time where computers had been invented, but software had not been fully utilized yet, he would not be a billionaire. Another thing, Bill Gates could have been born at the exact same time, born the exact same day. But if Bill Gates's ass was born in Florida, he'd never be a billionaire. If he was born 100 miles south of where he was born, he'd never be a billionaire. If Bill Gates's father was not around and wasn't the business magnate that he was in Seattle, he'd never be a billionaire. And the number one, Michael, the number one, Bill Gates stole his software from Hewlett-Packard. And if Hewlett-Packard had not opened up their company or their headquarters not far from where Bill Gates grew up, Bill Gates would have never been able to steal the product that became Microsoft. So no, Michael. And he didn't even take his life savings, like you said. He got a loan from his parents. So the reason Michael Vallely believes that we ride on Bill Gates's back and he doesn't ride on ours is because Bill Gates and his friends control all the media. They control the narrative. So of course we're going to think that, well, this billionaire media is telling us that, man, billionaires are amazing. And all of this really comes back from the fact that in Christianity, Calvinism Christianity, it was if you worked hard, you were more likely to get into heaven, right? Wouldn't you love to have been the king that came up with that one a couple hundred years ago? Oh, peasants, if you work hard, you'll get into heaven. And you're like, nice, I nailed this one. Work hard, get into heaven. Work hard, it all goes to me. So Americans took that work hard, go to heaven, and it turned to, work hard means you're a good person, means you go to heaven. Now we changed it to work hard means you're a good person, means you make a lot of money, right? Well, and that's exactly what it is, X. Because it's all about the luck of the draw, where you were born, who you were born to. Dr. Faded, we appreciate it because this is a community of people that all feel this way. Because one of the ways that the system was able to normalize this pressure that we live under is it keeps all of us quiet, right? It keeps all of us from speaking out. Can't even talk about our goddamn salaries at work, right? So when people come in here, I know, living to dream, it was dirty. So when people come in here and they drop a me, what you're doing is you're showing everybody else in the community, shit, another one that feels that way. Another one that feels that way. Holy fuck, do we all feel this way? Right? Because we're all experiencing the same thing. Americans under 40 are the first generation in our country's history to be worse off than our parents. Richard, but what about when the majority of people are working hard and still aren't getting a great outcome? Because right now, absolutely, Marcy, all day, every day. Right now, over 80% of Americans do not even have $5,000 in savings. Over 80% of Americans don't even have $5,000 in savings. It's a clothing brand bonus. So if you're saying, yeah, I'm with you, man. Sometimes life doesn't work out. It's hard. And that is what the common good is there for, right? That's literally what the social safety net is there for. In those times that it does not, that it is an actual emergency. The reason everything is so stressed and feels so broken right now is because the billionaire, ultra wealthy people are paying such low wages that millions of people have to now rely on the common good. So they rely on medical assistance. They rely on housing assistance. And then that's all of us who already barely has enough in the beginning, in the first place, then is now paying more taxes and having all this kind of problem. Thank you, Beep. Y'all, if you are ready to do more, what we are doing is we are meeting every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, because what if we had a space where people across the country could come together to talk about these problems? Because part of the reason these problems persist is the ultra wealthy get rich off of us arguing about these problems than rather fixing the real problems, which is the wealth gap, which is the wealth inequality, which is that one person up top is taking more than their fair share. Nico, it takes a long time. The first step is connecting with each other, because what we have to do is we have to replace corporate systems with local ones. Right now, we could have 10 million people go protest tomorrow, and it would not mean anything, because the very next day, we're going and buying the groceries from the same people we're protesting. We're going and buying our gas from the same people that we're protesting. Essentially, we need to figure out where our food, where our healthcare, and where our housing is going to come from. And two of those things can be relatively easy. Food, we got people growing food all around us, right? It's just that the corporations have plopped themselves in between us and our food producers. We've got healthcare providers all around us too, except the corporations have plopped themselves in between us and our healthcare providers. So we need to stop relying on corporations when those corporations don't give a shit about you. Not only that, those corporations will actively hurt you. Dogs of crooked manor, you are so right. Because what we are saying, anything that you buy over and over again, soap, paper towels, figure out an alternative that you do not have to buy over and over again, right? And then that's what this is. This is a group of people ready to change their habits long term. I looked around for so long before we started this and built this. I would talk to my wife like, but it's just us doing it. It's just us doing it. And she's like, but if everybody did it, it would matter, honey. God, I love her. And then so that's what this is we are building up towards a national strike because that's the only thing that shifts the balance of power. But the way that a national strike shifts the balance of power isn't all of us just taking a leap of faith and hoping that it works. The way we shift the balance of power is we stop relying on corporations for the things we need to live. We've allowed the corporations to control the essentials. And we could have 100 million people protesting, but as long as the corporations still control the essentials, power has not changed. Once we start controlling the essentials, that's when we have power. That's when we have power. It is only when we start to figure out where our food comes from, where our housing comes from, where our healthcare comes from, and we take control of those things that we will have the power back. So we need to stop relying on corporations and begin relying on each other. Well, if we rely on each other, I don't want to rely on a damn stranger. So we better become friends. That's it. That's the start of all this. Connecting. That is it. We need to all connect. And the more we connect, the more we will build a joyous space that people want to come into, that they're saying, well, I've wanted to change my habits for a long time already. Now I have this whole group that I can change my habits with. Why do you think workout groups work so well? Diet groups, because you're doing something that is hard, but you're doing it with other people. Well, Debrack, it's hard because protesting, it used to be when the pillars of power worked for us. When the pillars of power worked for us, when we controlled the economy, when we controlled the politics, when we controlled the media, yeah, protesting did matter because what it would do is it would shake the institutions that our country was founded on because those institutions worked for us. That's the only reason protesting worked. That's why you're wrong about the 3.5% rule. The 3.5% rule works assuming that the institutions in that society, the institutions in that country actually work for the people that are protesting. But what happens when those institutions, when the media, the politics, and the economy only work for the 1%? Protesting doesn't do much because power isn't in protest. Power is control over the essentials. Golden, that is exactly what we are doing, is we are linking up with a lot of those groups. The massblackout.com is another one that we are with, and there are over 100 organizations a part of that. Freedom 35, I just wonder how much more they're going to get us to work. Because what I like to think about is my grandfather's generation, where he worked 40 hours a week. He was the only salary in this house. My grandmother didn't work. So technically they were working 20 hours a week combined, right? So back in 1950, both of my grandparents were able to sustain a household of 5 children with both of them working 20 hours a week. CDG, you're just not getting it. Because when people come together, if they do not control the essentials, nothing's going to be ousted. You are literally looking at examples where the institutions that started quaking when the people got together, those institutions still worked for the people. If 100 million people come together and are asking for change, but the people who control, they'll change the government, sure, but the billionaires will still run all the companies, right? So that's what we're saying. I'm not saying that you are. I'm saying that what moves people, what power is, I'm telling you that power is not protesting. Power is having control over the essentials. Because I guarantee in every other research that you are looking at, was every single institution in that society so captured by the 1% that it did not bother to move with the people. And that's really the problem, is that it just blows my mind that people think that as long as we get, didn't we have 10 million people out there for No Kings? You really think if we just simply get 10 million people out there, or what, 8 million, that Trump will just go away? That's like what we're asking next. Megan, we got the link in the petition. It is right in the bio now. So you are able to go click right in the bio. That is the link in there. Yep, X, they believe they are so much better than us. Well, that's what I get, Golden. The second No Kings is when I really started thinking about this. I heard so many people at No Kings go, what do we do next? I was down in DC. What do we do next? What do we do next? And it's like, damn, well, we got 6 million, 7 million. So that's what's so funny is that, are they saying that we just needed an extra million people? That if we only had an extra million people on No King's Day back in November, that Trump wouldn't be president anymore? The moment we get to 3.5%, everything just gets better. That's what I'm asking is, what's the next step? Right? What's the next step? I think that's a lot of what we forget to ask is, what's the next step? Right? Because when somebody is underpaid and they can't afford food or housing, we don't think of anything except for just the next step. Ozlight, yeah, do your civic duty and vote. Let's not pretend like it'll work, though. So both parties are two sides of the same coin, and that coin is in a billionaire's pocket. But if we keep voting for either power-hungry red or power-hungry blue, whether you vote for Pepsi or Coke, it doesn't matter. You're still getting a fizzy drink, right? You're still getting a fizzy drink. I'll take that, Ozolate. But what I think is that it's the voting within the Democrat versus Republican. But yeah, I'll take what you're saying. Because a lot of what I say is it's only 30% of the population that wants that way. I know, but the other one will kill us later. The other one's just soda. I hear you. I think we're on the same side. So it's, no, I still vote too. I mean, but what we say is that 30% of Americans, they're the only ones that actually want this bullshit. It's just that those 30% of Americans have a billionaire's thumb on the scale. 70% of people don't want this. And I think that's what they were saying, is that, hey, if those people can get out and vote, then we wouldn't have that. And then my counterpoint would be, if all those people just got out and voted establishment Democrat, we'd still be in a lot of the same problems, because the establishment Democrats, they're your, so say you've got two homophobic parents. Well, your homophobic dad hits you. Your homophobic mom holds a pride flag, but doesn't stop your dad, right? That's the Democrats. It's watching you get hurt, saying, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And you're saying, I'm getting hurt. If you're here for me, then do something about it. And they're just going, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And that's I think we agree that we're both correct. So, well, actually, Gail, yes, absolutely. We are right there with you on that. What we are doing is we meet every single Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, because what we need to do is all of us come together to remember that community is the opposite of greed. And that if we need to rely on corporations for what we need to live, and if we need to rely on corporations and that's what gives them their power, then we need to stop relying on corporations for what we need to live. Right? So we need to start relying on each other. And if we're going to rely on each other, then let's get to know each other. Let's get connected, right? CBG, I'm going to reply one more time. So were we not close to 3.5%? So what? 2.63 million would be approximately 1% of the population. If we triple that, we're at 8 million. Weren't we close to like 7 million during the November No Kings? So then my question is, if we had 7 million people out in the November No Kings, you are telling all of us that as a researcher with 100% certainty that if 1 million extra people were at the No Kings in November, that Trump would have been taken down. That's all that I'm asking, because to me, it feels like we need a little bit more than 8.5 million people going to the streets on a Saturday. So now it has to be from both sides. It can't just be 8 million people. It has to be 8 million. And this is where it just falls apart for me. It's why I never believed it in the first place, because, Wage, y'all, Marcy or Wage, it doesn't matter how many people we get. If we go and can get 100 million people to protest, what if the very next day, where do those 100 million people get their food come from? Where? They all go to the same billionaire-owned corporations that were protesting. If 10 million people are protesting and the next day they all have to go use their health care, they go and use their healthcare insurance that is owned by billionaires. What this is when the entire market is consolidated, when over 85% of corporations at the S&P, but they're not talking about demands, Golden. They're just saying when 3.5% of people get together, the government crumbles. So that's where it's not just about that. It's about who when we go and flip on our power, we are paying them money. And it's not like we're just saying, oh, well, we're only paying a little bit of the billionaires. No, because 85% of corporations on the S&P 500 have the same 3 top shareholder. So you're not going to say, okay, well, we just won't shop there. Well, you're still using their power. You're still driving their cars. You're still buying their gas. Oh, seriously, I'm sorry you feel that way. Did you hear that in one of the media that was controlled by the billionaires? Well, we know what they're going to say, right? People that look differently than Sirius. People that have come to this country recently. People that think differently than them. All of the enemies that the billionaire media told them to have, that's who they'll say. And then as soon as we point out that those aren't the people causing the problems in America, and we make it clear that it's the billionaires, then they'll say, well, who do you think makes the jobs in this country? Huh? Who do you think makes the technology in this country? Huh? You should just be grateful. Why don't you get a better skill? Right? That's what happens. So, yep. Oh, and there it is. Sorry. It's just good old-fashioned racism. Good old fashioned racism. So if I didn't know by the handlebar mustache, I know now. Golden, it's hard because the people are lied to. It literally comes from Calvinism. So we are founded, we're not technically, but there's a lot of our crap has to do with Christianity. Oh, as soon as he says it, X, I gotta block him because I don't deal with those kind of people. So it was they tell us lies with kernels of truth. That's why it's so easy for somebody. That's why the uneducated love Trump. He said it, not me. So, I lost my. So they've been lied to. But here's the real thing: is that let's go back to the bread analogy, right? Imagine America as 10 people needing 10 slices of bread together to survive. One person has the oven and the ingredients, but they don't know how to make the dough or bake the bread. The other 9 people are the ones that do the hard work and actually know how to bake the bread. Who should get what? Well, in America today, 1% of people has as much as 90% of us. And what ends up happening is that 1 or 2 people cannot survive, right? 1 or 2 people cannot survive. They're working hard to make the bread, to make the resources that everyone needs to live, but they cannot survive. So what would make it so that one of those other 9 people would look down on those people and be like, well, I don't care if they don't, if they don't survive? Well, it's number one, it comes from competition and the need for survival, right? If you realize that, okay, there's 9 of us, there's only 5 left, some people aren't going to make it. Well, then you get selfish, right? Our competition makes division. So that's one of the reasons why. One of the other reasons why people might feel this way seriously, the only people I know, I agree with you, those corporations that think that they can live on government assistance and that we won't notice it, man, that it blows my mind too. When Walmart makes $10 billion profit, but they have millions of employees that they're underpaying on purpose, that makes all of our taxes higher. And man, I am so glad that you were able to see that, because most people don't understand that a couple people, the majority of people on medical assistance or housing assistance or any kind of assistance are off of it within 5 years, right? Are off of it within 5 years. And so you really have just been lied to. And that's where, I could continue talking to you and let you be in here, but we all know that they're not trying to actually have a conversation, right? It really is. It's not Elon Musk or the billionaires who have gotten literally trillions of dollars in subsidies. It's that mother and her child, because let's face it, they're not white, right? So that's exactly what's going on. The world is upside down because of people like you. And that is where this group is against people like you. This group is about understanding that all Americans have intrinsic worth, whether your pudgy face thinks it does or not. Just because you were told that you are more special than people doesn't mean you are. What actually ends up happening is that people have to go on medical assistance because they were not given the education that they were needed to survive. And their education is what determined what job they got. And the job they get determines whether they have enough to survive. But someone like you, we seriously just don't care, because you're one of those 30% that is really voting against your own interest because of your ego, seriously, because of your ego. Well, if you love seeing lost people, then I'm sure you enjoy staring in the mirror every day. Because to blame when a working Ohio man, husband and father of 3 young women. Oh my God. Oh, I feel so sorry for your daughters. Oh, I feel so sorry for your daughters. So every day that you go to work, do you not realize that you make more money for your boss than what your boss pays you? Do you not realize that? Every day you go to work and your boss is probably making general rule, probably making double what he's paying you. And the fact that you are going to teach your daughters that if they lose their job when they have kids and they need to go on medical assistance, because really the only people that stay on medical assistance for an average longer of 3 to 5 years are single mothers. I just feel bad for you and your family. So, but that's where they will, Jay Beans, and it will almost be helpful because, and he'll never open his eyes, right? Because what it is that if you admit that you are getting screwed over just like everybody else, then he's just as bad as those people that he looks down on because they don't look like him, because they don't think like him. The funniest part to me is that I'm pretty sure we all know that neither political party cares about us, right? Neither of them really care about us. And we are a group that's saying, hey, whether it's the political parties or the corporations, they don't care about me and you. So if they don't care about me and you, and right now we're relying on them for what we need, all this group is about us saying, well, we're going to stop relying on people who don't care about us. Let's start relying on people that do care about us. And that's all of y'all. That's our neighbors. That's our network. That's our community. So the fact that somebody comes in here and is just so upset, at a bunch of people saying, dang, we think the corporations are only out for profit and don't really care about us. We can particularly see that with the healthcare industry, but we see it happen in the majority of industries. So what we're going to do is we're going to come together and we're going to build a community large enough to rival the rigged system. We are going to start relying on each other instead of the corporations. Because the corporations don't understand that, yes, it was the point of business, but what you don't understand is that it used to be community-based capitalism, that the people running the businesses understood that if they took and took and took so much that there wasn't enough for the community to be healthy, they wouldn't have a business at all, right? Because their business relies on the community. So what they would do is, even if it hurt the profits, they would give back to the community because they knew that the community always supports a business up until the business is large enough to support a community. But around 1980, it changed from community-based capitalism to shareholder capitalism or stakeholder capitalism. And all that mattered was paying back the people at the top, making sure that the ultra wealthy got more and more rich. That's the problem right here. Red line, money we were paid. Blue line, money we made for the company. And that's fine, y'all. Where'd the bootlicker go? And that's fine. So we got to remember. So look at the O. That person is not, somebody that we care much about this group, because there are 70% of us that do not want the country to be this way, right? Only 30% of people want this, but they have a billionaire's thumb on their finger. But if you're asking what's been wrong in the last 30, 40 years, it's this gap right here. It's the fact that this is the money we made for the company. This is the money that they paid us. And look, it started off as equal. It started off as pretty equal. That was in the 1980s. That was not that long ago. But what also started happening was that they started paying us less. They took over